So this story is talking about young adults still living with their parents. Let's go ahead and get into it. I only watched a little bit of it, and I feel that I want to give my take on it as we go through it.
About 1 in 3 Americans between 18 and 34 years old live with their parents.
And while you may have heard more about this recently, this trend isn't new.
Between 2005 and 2015, the share just grew very steeply over this.
Let's see. 18 years old with their parents, men, women, both. Men, it was more amazing. 1834 was more men than girls, but then 80 it was less women than dudes. I wonder why. But the trend was kind of static, because when you look at it, the percentages are different, but the way the chart goes, they it was like equal. You see what I'm saying? The movement was pretty much equal throughout. So it really wasn't much change. So I wonder, could it be, do they consider kids living, let's say, man and woman living together and living with one of the parents? Because I know, like the neighborhood I live in, there's a woman around the corner who's older woman. She was pushing a little baby stroller, and so she was at, we asked her, know, is that her kid, a grandbaby, something like that? She lies, the granddaughter, uh, daughter, and her husband live with them, but they at work. And she told a story that they both work and they're saving money so they can get get them their own house. Which I'm like, shoot, that's the thing to do. And it was a white lady with kids, but then down the street also pretty much same thing. It's uh older couple got a daughter, and I think she's married, and they were living there fine, saving money to where they can save money and go get their own home. So I wonder if, I'm saying, is that taken in consideration with this chart?
10-year period. Since then, it's been fairly stable. There was an uptick, of course, during the pandemic. In the wake of the pandemic, those rates of parental co-residence are now about where they were right before. Part of the reason we see this escalation of young adults not leaving the nest or returning to the nest is this idea that it was harder and harder for them to weather shocks.
Nearly 30% of Gen Z said they would like to save, but don't make enough money. And roughly 2 in 5 millennials and Gen Z adults feel it's harder to build financial wealth now than when their parents were their age because of the economy. 27-year-old Victoria Franklin has been living with her mother in New Jersey since she graduated college in 2019.
I saw all of the money that I was saving, and I thought, maybe I should stay home for a little bit, and I didn't feel an urgency to move out.
Not everyone is enthusiastic about this trend.
You guys are making six figures together. You can't tell me you can't afford a house. They just don't want to spend their money.
Oh, yeah. 36% of Americans said in a 2022 survey that more young adults living with their parents is bad for society. So here's why young Americans are choosing to live with their parents and what the implications are for the U.S. economy.
So when I was younger, 18, 19, moved out the house, got an apartment. For those of you in Dallas who know, me and my ex, we lived in Canterbury Village. First apartment, one bedroom, all bills paid, 425. We talk about what, 95, 96, 1996. And I mean, it was the hood. You know what I'm saying? Like, serious. I mean, but that's how we grew up anyway. I mean, well, let me take this back, because we both lived in two-parent households, but I mean, we lived in the group in Pleasant Grove, period. And like I say, first apartment was, let's say, Canterbury Village, all bills paid. Second apartment, two-bedroom apartment in Lancaster, I think it was Hunters Creek, I think. Cost a little bit more, maybe like 550, something like that. And so the rent, it wasn't too expensive. Back in the day, we couldn't wait to move out the house, because we was ready to do our own thing. We'll figure it out. When we get out the house, become grown, do our own thing. Now these kids nowadays, some of them do want to get out, but then you got a lot of them, as they say, what is it, 30-something% of them staying home. 1 in 3 grown kids staying at home. Like a lot of them now, they don't want to leave the house. And financially, and I look back on it, I think that is probably the best way to do things. When you see people who have like quote unquote generational wealth or kids who get out here and got a good start to life, a lot of times, most of them like they went to college. And if you're dealing with say like white people that they get gifted homes, down payments, cars, things of that nature, can stay home until what I'm saying they can build their own little nest egg, get married, and then move on and start their own family. I truly feel, looking back, that's the best way to do it. I've always said that I know in our community that there are things that we did wrong, that we were taught wrong, and things that we have taught our kids wrong, and we got to change it. One of them was telling our daughters to go to college, get your 5 degrees, and then once you do that, find you a man. But that's backwards, because by the time you do all that, you late 20s, early 30s, and you have nobody. And those guys that was at the school that you was at, they found most likely women at school. You know what I'm saying? Got married, found like-minded, and you probably had a like-minded guy. And I just tell my daughters all the time, you in school, you in certain around certain people doing certain things, especially education-wise, stick with them guys. Don't go clubbing, out in the streets, hanging out, partying, finding dudes there. No, 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 no. You find you a dude who looks like he had his head on his shoulders. Hopefully, 2 parents, stable household, so they have an idea of what it looks like. And you know what I'm saying, you hang in them crowds of people who are used to having things and who are probably most likely going to follow in the footsteps of their family to do things the right way for the most part. Not saying it always works out 100%. Nothing is 100%. I'll tell you that 50, 11 times. But at least, like I say, give yourself a chance to do great things. So yeah, long story short, in other words, kids, especially daughters, I feel they should stay home. Well, but regardless, hell, daughters, sons, stay home as long as possible. Save your money, do right, and that way, when you're ready to move out, you can move out. Because what's funny is you get out there in the world, you try it, you mess up, and what's the first thing your parents say? Hey, you always have a home to come to if you need it. So why not just stay home?
My name is Victoria Franklin. I am 27 years old, and I live in my childhood home with my mother and my boyfriend.
Victoria graduated.
No. No, no, no. That's one thing that will not be happening in the house of Marley. There will be no child and boyfriend. Now, if y'all are married, then we can talk. But boyfriend, nah, that ain't how it's gonna work around here.
From the University of Miami in 2019 and moved in with her mom when she was looking for a job.
After I saw the cost of living and things like that after I graduated, that maybe I'd be home for about a year.
More than half of Gen Z adults say they don't make enough money to live the life they want due to high cost of living.
Well, hell, we didn't make enough money to live the life that we wanted due to the high cost of living. I know it's a little higher now than it was back when I was growing up, but that's every kid coming straight out of school and trying to make it. So the point is, like I said, if you're gonna go out there, that's not an excuse to me. I just say that's not an excuse. If you want to go out there and do it and live in the real world, adult world, it don't, you'll figure it out.
I ended up bartending and waitressing until October, where I got my first offer. So it did take a little bit longer than I expected. Currently live at the Jersey Shore, and I was commuting into New York City, which takes about 2 hours each way. And I thought, in 6 months or so, I'll move into the city, be closer to the job. And the pandemic threw a wrench in those plans.
Victoria now works a fully remote job, which she says she probably wouldn't have if it weren't for the pandemic. Without a commute to worry about, she was able to stay at her mom's for longer.
It's a lot harder for young people today to save up for, markers of the American dream than it was for previous generations. Part of the reason we see this escalation of young adults not leaving the nest or returning to the nest is this idea that it was harder and harder for them to weather shocks. And so, for example, if they suffered a layoff or they suffer some sort of health shock or they got in a car accident, if they didn't have any additional credit to weather that shock, they would end up
Rich folks drink out of mason jar. I thought it was just us country folk down here. And young lady, you need to put your sodas down. You're gonna regret that in about 10, 15, like you're gonna regret it in about 10, 15 years.
being back home. The financial stability of young adults, their ability to pay for things if they got into an emergency, was one of the big factors influencing whether or not they were living on their own or living with their parents.
A significant number of Gen Z adults and millennials lack emergency savings. In fact, 46% of millennials and 32% of Gen Z have more credit card debt than emergency savings.
And that is probably a downfall of trying to move out too early on your own. If you don't have a nest egg to use credit card debt, or you go to school and you get student loan debt, and then you get out there trying to pay bills, say, oh, we can do this, oh, we can do that. But then when reality hit, you can't pay off that bill. You realize you hadn't paid that credit card off. You had it for 2-3 years and the balance has barely went down. The student loan debt, you have paid on that every month and you find out that it hadn't went down. You, like she was, a part-time bartender, and then all of a sudden you get a full-time job making, what did she say, almost 6 figures, about 6 figures. And then your tax bracket change. And now instead of getting money back from taxes, you owe thousands of dollars. When reality hits.
This can have ramifications for setting up a financial future.
Roughly 1 in 4 Gen Z adults say housing costs are one of the biggest challenges to financial success.
The prices of homes has escalated over the last few decades much faster than actual incomes. So it is actually much harder for a millennial or a Gen Z to save up for a down payment to buy a home. And that's something that bears out in the data.
The pandemic did have a lot to do with it. I saw how much I was saving and I was like,
And I do blame the pandemic for these home prices, because I can tell you, like, when we got our house, well, let's say we can still can afford it. Well, what I'm saying is it was a certain price. And when the pandemic hit and when these Californians and everybody started moving out here and paying above market for these houses, like I said, the value of our house went up like $120,000, $150,000. I haven't even checked it lately. But like within a year or so, the value of the house just shot up. And like I told you, I got a homeboy whose house damn near doubled. And he's in a new house too, but the subdivisions are still being built. His area is still being built up. And like I said, the value of his house is double. So taxes is like kicking our butts right now. So it is a little harder. I can understand that part of costing more to buy a nice house. Nobody wants to go to college 4 years and then end up in the projects making $100,000 a year. Doesn't make sense. I told y'all before, we went and looked at an apartment for one of my daughters, and out here in they said they wanted 3 times the rent. And I'm like, 3 times the rent is what I make. And there's no way in the world that I, at my age, with my degree and the money that I make, will stay in that apartment. When I first moved out of my parents' house, that would have been right where I went, which is where she was trying to go. But for me and where I'm at, no, that's not. But hey, rent has went up like a sun gun.
Paying, upwards of $3,000 a month and making somebody else richer when I could stay at home, save that money, and spend it on where I want to spend it. Between my job and my bartending and waitressing, I make anywhere from $85,000 to $95,000 a year. I would say about 40 to 50% of
Now see, she make damn near $100,000 a year. Now again, before the pandemic, she could have got a nice house, because right now she'd be paying the mortgage for the price of the house 6 years ago. let's just say that 6, 7 years ago, she'd have been set. She'd been okay. But now it's damn near hard. Like $100,000 is like not a lot of money now.
My salary is going right into savings. My mentality is why rent and give my money spend it on where I want to spend it. Between my job and my bartending and waitressing, I make anywhere from $85,000 to $95,000 a year. I would say about 40 to 50% of my salary is going right into savings. My mentality is why rent and give my money to someone else when I can start to own? And so a big chunk of that money is going to go towards a down payment on a house.
And I don't blame her. That's how it's supposed to happen.
Young adults ages 25 to 34 in high cost of living areas are more likely.
Let's say percentage of 25 to 30 years with parents. Light blue. This light blue or a little darker blue, like a little darker blue. 16 to 20% in Texas living with parents. Now, some of these kids living with parents ain't doing nothing. Just want y'all to understand it. Don't be fooled now. Some of them living with parents just sorry, ain't trying to do nothing better with their life. And so they just don't just go by these stats like all these kids are staying with their parents so they can save money for a down payment and get them a house. No.
To live with their parents. Nearly 26% of young adults in New Jersey were living with at least one of their parents in 2022. The median household income in Oceanport, New Jersey, where the Franklins live, was nearly $133,000 in 2022, while the median value of a home in the region was around $644,000.
My dad built this house for $350,000 and was making probably 10 to 15,000 less than I was. My mom wasn't working at the time, and they were able to afford a $350,000 house on a $70,000 a year salary with a son. And that's not even the American dream anymore. That's not even possible. My aunt, who I fight with all the time, is always saying how you have to give somewhere, right? And my cousin said something to her the other day and said, we're giving everywhere. We don't get property. We don't get good school systems. Whatever we're trading off is too much to trade off.
Victoria had brought up some conflict with her aunt a few times.
This is heavy. It's warm. Loads of pockets. I'm impressed with it. This is the best skin.
Oh, this is my Aunt Judy.
So I asked Aunt Judy to come on over and talk to us.
I talked about how much we fight about millennials, yes, but millennials living at home and how you always say, well, you have to sacrifice something, but
She's driving a baby Benz. Kind of torn on that one. Probably should have got a little Toyota Camry. Hey, I'm not knocking the person money. To me, the perfect scenario would be, you remember the show Dallas? A lot of y'all youngsters don't remember that show, but I do. Mama used to watch it all the time, and hell, I got all of them on DVD right now. I think the old episodes and the last episodes that came out before JR died for real in real life. But scenario like Dallas would be the perfect scenario. I remember getting this house, and then not too long after getting this house, I saw stepkids, grandbabies, everybody. Seemed like when our U-Haul left, their U-Haul pulled up. Like, where in the hell y'all come from? But I said to myself, if I would have known or would have thought that would have been a scenario, I would have waited a little bit longer to purchase a house, because like a few months after we got this one, I looked down the street and there was another house, maybe like a mile or two down the road, a little older, same price, few more bedrooms, not the same number of bedrooms, but sitting on more land and no HOA. Don't move into an HOA neighborhood, y'all, but no HOA. And I'm thinking, man, I could have got that house, probably could have put some tiny homes back there back when they was affordable. A couple of tiny homes back there, so that way if any of the children, stepkids, grandbabies, whoever needed somewhere to stay, they can move back. They can stay back there and not necessarily in the house. Because if you looked at like the show Dallas, what's his name? Craig? Was it Clegg? Whatever his name is, like the he was not hostage, good Lord. He was Jock Ewan's son from an affair or whatever. But he was given like an acre out there on South Fork Ranch where they say he can live in the house. He's like, no, I just rather build my own house out there, just give me my own little plot, a little acre or whatever, and build a house. To me, that'd be the perfect scenario. You got land, you can put houses on that land, and all your family, they can live there as long as they want to. Hey, they ain't got to move. They just have their own space. So it's a lot to have, two family, a bunch of people inside under one roof. It's a lot, man.
How much we're sacrificing. We don't get like a big property, or we don't get like a nice house, or it's not in a good school system.
You have to start somewhere. You have to start anywhere. Just start your portfolio is what I told you. I don't care what it is. You don't have to live in Oceanport your first time.
No, but you were able to live in Oceanport the first time.
Okay, I guess it was different times.
Gen X and baby boomers may have a tougher time understanding what young adults are going through today because they enjoyed, until the pandemic recession hit, a solid almost 15 years of uninterrupted economic expansion. Baby boomers, Gen X, they weathered many economic downturns, including major recessions. But I think the big difference is that when they were starting to form their own households, starting to accumulate wealth, housing and higher ed were both more affordable relative to their incomes than they are now.
When I started out, I was making $35,000 a year. That was nothing. And he was making $35,000 a year. You guys are making six figures together. You can't tell me you can't afford a house. They just don't want to spend their money.
Told ya. No.
What was my first house? 250, maybe 270.
That doesn't exist anymore. Where am I finding a $270,000
I'm
house?
not making $35,000 a year. Combined, we made 70.
In 1995, $70,000 was the equivalent of $145,000 today.
Yeah, look at that. See?
We do also have a situation that what is really good for an individual person or an individual family is not necessarily good for the entire macro economy.
The Federal Reserve estimates in a 2019 paper that young adults who move out of their parents' house would spend around $13,000 more per year on things such as housing, food, and transportation.
One of the big boosts to consumer spending is when people form households. Whether you're a renter or a buyer, you need to furnish that house. You need to fix things up in the home to make it livable. You end up spending a lot of money during that time. So if the pace of household formation slows down, then that's going to slow down the pace of consumer spending, and that will produce a drag on the economy.
Another issue is that there aren't enough affordable properties in popular areas for younger people who are in entry-level jobs and making less money.
Any sort of housing policy needs to be multi-pronged. Are there homes that are at the price point of these prospective home buyers? What can we do to increase the housing supply? What can we do to build? What can we do to help elder Americans, to help them downsize and move into more right-sized homes that will open up larger homes for young families? So I think one alone is not really going to do it. We've got to look both at demand as well as supply.
The other major factor here is how much student loan debt young Americans have. 59% of U.S. adults say they've delayed financial milestones because of their student debt.
I do have a student loan payment. It's about $480 a month. So that's my largest expense.
The liability could be worse for Black borrowers, who tend to have higher than average student loan debt and less wealth than white counterparts. Black and Hispanic respondents were more likely to say that debt was holding them back from reaching financial milestones. Less than half of white respondents said the same.
The amount of debt young adults held also rose substantially between 2005 and 2014, during that period of strong escalation in that cohort living with their parents.
Aggregate student loans are such an enormous part of the economy now. And that's not a reflection of younger people making bad choices with their education. It's really a consequence in large part due to the fact that there's less public funding and going to college just is more expensive, which makes it even harder for even those college grads who are hoping to get earning more money as a result of their college degrees.
Student loan debt by itself can't explain the phenomenon, especially considering so many European countries with much less student loan debt have higher rates of young adults living with their parents.
24 out of 29 European countries had more 18 to 34-year-olds living with their parents in 2021 than the US. It was over 70% in Italy, Portugal, Greece, Serbia, and Croatia.
My boyfriend is Brazilian, and multi-generational homes are very common in almost everywhere else in the world, except in the United States. So I'm just taking a page of their playbook.
The American
Yeah, so it shouldn't be like looked bad upon to stay with your parents as an adult, because like I said, you can save money, build money. You can build wealth, save money, and live comfortably. I mean, it's the more things get expensive in this country, in this world, the more sense it makes. I've said that you know, the price of things is going to cause people, going to make people, families stay together, come back together, acting like you don't like your parents, don't like your kids or your brothers and sisters. You might have to end up living together because you can't afford to live on your own and live in a, like I say, in a decent neighborhood.
Are probably the only people that they're not multi-generations in one house. And I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I think it's kind of nice. Why do we have to be so cold to push everybody out?
You know, there are a lot of cultures out there in which it is normal to live with your parents until you get married. And I don't think there's necessarily an economic explanation for that.
The Franklins would say in the US, it is the economy, but Victoria's mom is kind of okay with it.
Unfortunately, it is the economy and the world that we live in that just doesn't allow them to go live a comfortable life. So with them living here was no big deal. It's not
veggie wrap and a freaking soda.
Not really a problem. They're saving their money. Eventually they'll buy a house and that works.
At least you hope so, because these houses are so expensive. The prices are going up so fast that you don't know if it'll really be an option for them like that in the future. But anyway, tell me what you think about this story, man. Like I say, I think the problem that we have is that we taught our kids to graduate high school, move out. And we did that. But I don't think that was a smart thing to do. And now it's showing that it was not the smartest thing to do, because like I say, now things are so expensive and it's hard for these youngsters to make it on their own right now. So they need some help. So yeah, I do recommend, kids stay home. If they, that's the way to go. So I mean, if it's possible, you do. If it's not possible, then then you do what you can to help your kids, make it out there on their own. You don't want to see your children suffer. You don't want to see them go through things. Now they continue to make bad decisions and don't want to listen to, and that'd be a problem, because as humans, we get older, we feel we grown, we can make our own choice, we can do what we want to. Can't nobody tell us nothing but let me hold some money. Nah, I don't think you can have it both ways. So hey, I don't know, man. I don't know. But anyway, tell me what you think about this story. Leave your comments below and share it with the world. Let's have an intelligent conversation around here. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Those four things cost you nothing but maybe a couple minutes out your day, but it means the world to us here. If you would like to support us financially, you can get super thanks, super chat, super stickers, and you can also go to the description box below. There's links there you can click on to help support us there. Don't forget to go to marlonmorale.com. That's marlonmorale.com, where you can get 10% off your first purchase of all our luxury items. And if you'd like to take advantage of our sandalwood sandalwood beard kit, our miniature beard kit, which includes a beard balm, beard oil, beard wash, click on the shop button below. Sandalwood, clinically proven to help stimulate hair follicle growth. So if you're trying to grow that beard to its full potential, why not use the best product on the market? And with that being said, I'll leave you in peace, and I'll see you on the other side.